Hello everybody, I hope you're well. I'm Callum at Repair Wins, and today I've got a laptop off of the scrap heap from my non-profit, and trust me, if it's come off of my scrap heap, it means it's scrap. Let's just open it up and see what we're dealing with, shall we? Oh, that's good, I can hear popping noises. Let's just take a look at the corner. Oh, it's completely dismantling itself. Bad luck. I'd show you the bottom of the machine, but there's an asset label from a business that needs to be removed before I do so. But this laptop is obviously in a state. As far as I'm aware, the motherboard isn't working. I'm pretty sure the keyboard was faulty when the motherboard was working. It's obviously in the process of disassembling itself. So there's no way it's worth my time. There's no way it's going to be worth spending any proper money on it. But oh, and it's also missing the battery as well, as you can see. But I don't really care. Every once in a while, it's nice to fix something that isn't worth fixing. So that's exactly what I'm going to try and do here. How about I stop talking? Why don't I remove this asset label, and then we'll try and see what we're working with. I think the first thing to do is to remove the bottom cover. I'm fairly sure this laptop doesn't have RAM inside, and obviously it's not going to turn on without RAM anyway. All the screws have been removed, you won't be surprised to hear. So I'm just going to use this pry tool to basically pop the cover off and see what's obviously inside. Right then, I've freed up the bottom cover. I can obviously remove it, and you can actually see that in there it's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. The screws on the left are okay, they're screwed in as you would expect, but the ones on the right, they aren't actually installed. So the non-profit that I run, we run repair training courses, and I'm going to guess what's happened is someone's taken this device apart, because it was deemed basically scrap. So it's been taken apart, and whoever's put it back together, I mean, maybe they were told not to, but none of the screws have been put in. It's obviously missing its RAM and whatever else, which is fine, because if we have a machine that's junk, we take it back apart and we strip the RAM and whatnot. Maybe we needed some screws that were these sizes to use elsewhere and they were removed. And what I'm going to do now is install a stick of RAM. And we can give the thing a quick test. Anyway, the plan was to plug this thing in, but it's missing the charging port. So you can see there's clearly no port. And then here where it connects to the board, there's obviously no port either. There we are then, that's soldered up. You can see it just runs along the board to a regular old charger. We can plug the regular charger in and see if this thing comes to life, or at least see what it's doing if it doesn't come to life. And let's see what happens to the machine, if anything. So I'm going to push the power button. Was that? Oh, okay, there is a light that's come on there. Let's see if the screen comes to life. Oh, and how ironic, this thing had an i7 at one point in time. Well, I guess it will still have an i7, but it's a 7th gen, unfortunately, so it doesn't run the latest version of Windows, at least not officially anyway. So, is the processor getting warm? Because there's no fan in this laptop, if you weren't aware. The processor isn't getting warm. I don't think I actually switched it on. Right, I definitely felt the button compress. Oh, there you are, it's switched on. Okay, so the laptop does turn on. You can see there's a line down there in the screen, though. That's not very good. Ignore the error, that's just because I removed the battery. Alright, I'm quite surprised to see the laptop actually switch on and work. I did think it had a BIOS issue or a motherboard fault or whatever. I guess we've scrapped it because clearly the keyboard doesn't work, or it was missing a battery and a fan and storage and RAM and a charger and so on and so forth. Let me just unplug the little charger. Right then, I suppose the next thing to do is to get a fan for one of these things. That way we can, keep it cool while it's running. And then ideally, we can give it a test and see what needs to be fixed with it. From where I'm sat anyway, it obviously needs some storage, it needs a BIOS battery, it needs a fan, it needs a proper charging port, it needs a regular battery, it needs a DVD drive. I'm fairly sure the keyboard didn't work, and these laptops are only worth £50 regardless, so, I hope you don't blame me for scrapping the thing. But the important ones then is basically just a fan and a proper charging port. The rest of the stuff we can sort out later. Oh, and I almost forgot the screen. Here we are then, I've bought a fan, it cost £4.58, and I've bought a charging port, it cost £3.75 for this laptop. The battery isn't something I'm worried about buying at the moment. We'll do that provided, the machine actually ends up working. I'm 99% sure I have a spare screen, and the same sort of goes for all the other smaller parts that aren't as important. It's a Phillips 1 screwdriver as always. In order to fit the charging port, I've got to unscrew the right hinge, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to unplug the LCD cable just to make my life easier. I guess I can just sort of fold it down and get it plugged into the board. Right, that'll do. You can fold the excess just down on the top. Make sure this is closed. Make sure the antennas are run where they need to be. And now we can plug the fan in. But clearly the easiest thing to do is just going to be to plug the cable in first, make sure it's seated all the way at the bottom, and then to put the fan in place. And when the fan's in place, I can put the one screw in. It turns out there aren't actually any screws that hold the fan down. Anyway, I think I'm going to try and put a Wi-Fi card in, so that way I can actually click the antennas down into something. Now, luckily, I've got a nice big bag of Wi-Fi cards here, so I'm just going to pour them all out, and we can quickly dig through them. So straight away, I can discard all of the older style. And this is an HP laptop. It's a 7th gen Intel chip, so I don't think there'll be a whitelist. But either way, if I can find a Wi-Fi card with an HP part number, I'll make sure to use that. So they all go there, and then we've got this one, which is Dell part number. Put it off to the side. I've got this one here. Look, that'll do. I'm not even going to check the rest. 2015 HP part number. These things are really easy to install. You just put it in a 45-degree angle, make sure it sits flat, and then you can lie it down. So now that I've done that, I can put the screw in. You never get these to run exactly the same way as they did from the factory, but that's not really an issue. Just as long as they're running, they're not going to be they're not going to impact anything. And as long as you can just get them plugged in. Only use the screwdriver to push down when you know it's lined up. Don't just get the screwdriver and just start pushing really hard down on it because it's not lined up. It shouldn't take much force at all to actually get it to click in. And if you use lots of force, you'll just end up basically either damaging the cable end or you'll damage the Wi-Fi card. Replacement Wi-Fi cards are cheap, but it's even cheaper to not have to replace it in the first place. So we're plugging the display cable back in. Just make sure that the battery is removed from the laptop and that it's not plugged into a power source, because you can blow the backlight circuit, and that means taking the board out and doing a repair in the best case. And the worst case, you kill the chipset and basically the laptop's a write-off. I'd like to put some storage in this laptop, but I can't currently because I've not got any M.2 SSDs spare. I do actually have the one, but it's not SATA. It needs to be an M.2 SATA specifically, so I'm going to have to wait until I get one of those. But the next thing I'd like to do is to just stick the bottom cover on temporarily. We can switch the machine on, give it a test, and then see if this keyboard's working or not. I'll be able to get my hands on an SSD tomorrow. As well as that, I can also get a BIOS battery. The laptop will work fine without those things in the meantime, so I'm just going to put the bottom cover on. Now, you might be asking yourself why I'm putting the cover on the laptop when it clearly isn't finished with yet, and furthermore, why I'm going to the effort of screwing it down. The reason is that if you're working on a laptop and you keep opening it and closing it, there's a lot of strain going into the hinges, and these machines need the extra screws, you know. So if you it's designed to have 3 or 4 screws holding the hinge down, and if you've only got 2 of them holding it down, then it's basically straining the laptop. So you don't want to open it and close it too many times unless the bottom cover is installed and screwed down as it should be. What I'd like to do then is install Linux. I've got a USB drive here that's got Linux on it. So I'll just plug that into our laptop, and then we can plug the charger in. And the theory is the laptop will switch on automatically, because these machines do if they don't have a battery and the BIOS is being reset. Lovely, it's just come to life, and it has this error here, CMOS reset. No problem at all. That's going to come up every time you work on a laptop when you're disconnecting the battery if there's no BIOS battery in there. I've just hit enter. That's going to reboot the laptop, and I'm going to press the F9 key, because doing that is going to get the laptop into the boot menu. Lovely, USB hard drive has come up. The laptop is booted, and I've managed to open a notepad, so I'm going to type out a sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. That uses every letter in the English alphabet, and that all seems to have worked fine. Seems to be working okay so far. I mean, I can use the arrows to navigate between, I think. Yeah, the arrows are navigating. Right, it's not because there's a screw that underneath it either. Oh, come on, it can't be the last key I checked doesn't work. I mean, without the backspace key, it's a bit useless, isn't it? So page up and page down. Every single key except for backspace. I mean, obviously there's no getting around that. This thing's going to need a new keyboard. That's quite annoying. It had me excited there that maybe I was going to save 15 or 20 quid, but fine, right, it needs a keyboard. Whilst I've got the laptop switched on and it's running Linux, I'm going to open Firefox, because what I can do is type in webcam test, and then that's obviously going to allow me to test the webcam. I can test the speakers, and I can test the Wi-Fi. It's going to check for media devices, allow access, going to say allow. It's quite clear that that's working. So I'm just going to roll backwards a little bit. And we hit test my cam. Right, that's fine. You can see the top of my head. Very clever. It's all grey and black and white. Remember, this was a business tier laptop. It's an HP 250, and this is the best they gave you. Either way though, testing completed successfully. It seems happy enough that it works. can bring something in close, it seems to focus okay. You can see the damage on the end of my tool. So I'm happy the webcam works. Let's now go to YouTube.
Your host, Lewis Rossman. Today I want to
He's your host, Lewis Rossman.
follow up on something that I talked about with regards to Synology.
And he wants to follow up on Synology. Anyway, that's clearly working fine. I can do the scrolling using my fingers. I can do Alt and F4, I can right click, I can drag around. I think the only fault with this laptop then is just the keyboard. So one single key. I've got a screen spare. I won't have a battery, so I'm going to need to buy a keyboard. I'm going to need to buy a battery. With the exception of that though, and the DVD drive, but I've got a plan for that. I've managed to find myself a replacement keyboard, specifically listed as being compatible with that HP 250G6. What I'm going to do is hit buy it now, and obviously once it's arrived, we can get it fitted into the laptop. You can see here that I have a new screen, so obviously the plan is to replace the old one. This just came from the non-profit. It's a basically 30 pin EDP, 15.6 inch, exactly the same as the original. I mean, it's probably not going to be the same part, but the point is it's going to be electrically compatible. So in order to do a screen replacement, you obviously remove the battery and you unplug the charger. That's been done here. So then I'm just going to unplug the display cable because I'm going to take the whole housing off to make my life easier. I'll have to undo the antennas. So the antennas that I just plugged in are getting unplugged. And then you just take the screws out that are holding the hinges down. So they're both out, and you need a metal pry tool, or I might be able to get away with using a screwdriver, but something to just lift up on the hinge so it's open a bit. Then you can open the rest by hand. Alright, we got there in the end, so now we can just unroot sort of the cables, making a note that the antennas go on the top. I mean, maybe they're not supposed to go on the top, but that's where I put them, and the cover obviously went on fine. But now I can just sort of roll the housing forwards, and then the palm rest comes free, and we're just left for the screen body. Typically you'd be a bit more gentle removing the bezel, but this screen's junk, so basically I'm just going to use a metal tool. And in all fairness, I'm not actually putting any strain on the screen itself. I just slid the tool between the screen and the bezel and then lifted it up. But this bezel's coming off really easily, which makes me feel like this screen's been taken off before. And typically you've got glue or adhesive or whatever holding the bezel on. But I'm just running my finger between the bezel and the screen. And that was probably one of the easiest screen bezel removals I've ever done. Looks like the hinges have to come off in order to get to the screen, but I'm not going to remove the hinges. I'm just going to take the screws at the top out and then move the hinges out of the way. Brilliant, and I should be able to sort of lift this hinge up. And you see that? Just sort of bend it out of the way. Then I can lift the screen, get the screen to clear the hinge, put it back down, lift this hinge, do exactly the same thing. Just lift the screen up. Obviously you don't want to bend the hinge because metal has a memory, so if you bend it too far it's going to get stuck in place, but you can bend it sort of 7 or 8 degrees and not have a problem. So there we are then, that's just screws out, screen removed. Can fold it forward, so I'll slide the housing back. Then we've got a ribbon cable, so you just unplug the ribbon cable. You got to lift the tape up first, and then cable pulls out backwards straight. Right then, let's get the screen installed. First step obviously, plug it in, put the tape on. See, this laptop's only worth repairing because I have a lot of spare parts already. If you were just, I don't know, the average person and you were looking to buy a screen, buy a battery, buy a DVD drive, BIOS battery, SSD, keyboard, T7000 to do the keyboard replacement, fan, charging port, and then potentially anything else that I've missed, you'd be into silly money, especially for a laptop that won't run Windows 11. The final piece of the puzzle is just to put the bezel back on. It's 100 times easier to do this with the housing off of the body of the laptop. Anyway, see the screen's installed, go the whole way around, but there you go, the point is the job's been done properly. And now, because nothing can ever be simple, I have to practically dismantle the entire machine. Instead of HP making it so that I can just replace the keyboard with 3 screws like you were able to in the past, you have to take absolutely everything out, break all of these plastic welds, remove this metal cover, break the plastic welds holding the keyboard in, and then only after that are you finally able to get the keyboard out. You then set the new keyboard into the frame using 2 £55 a piece Hacker Omni vices. Then you use a tube of T7000, then you wait a day for it to dry, then you put the metal cover back on the top, then you wait another day for it to dry, and then you reassemble the laptop. Isn't that such a simple sounding process? Anyway then, all I'm doing is I'm going around the machine and I'm removing every single screw. I mean, obviously you don't literally take every screw out, but you're sort of taking 90% of them out. Right, come on. You should not need to remove the entire flipping motherboard to get the speakers out. This is just... My God, these companies hate us. You know, they make billions. And they still hate their customers. It doesn't make any sense. There you are, there's the motherboard out. Speakers are out. And finally, just a charging port that I just added. The next step is for me to break all of these plastic welds. That's every single one of these little black pegs that you see. I'm not going to show the process in this video because I've already shown it off in a video I made recently where I went in depth on a laptop keyboard replacement. But just know it's a massive pain. It's going to take me about 15 minutes to break the welds and another few to get rid of the welds that are actually holding the keyboard in. But I mean, the premise is just that you take a flat tool and you sort of try and dig it underneath the post. I mean, it needs to have sort of like a, you know, a pointy edge, which this one doesn't really. But the idea is you sort of dig it under, break the top of the post off like that, and then when you've done it, you go and you do the one next to it, and then you do the one next to it, and so on and so forth. You can also use a razor blade and just cut them. That's a little bit easier in my experience. You can see I've managed to remove the cover, and I've managed to remove the keyboard as well. The housing looks to be in really, really good shape, which is nice. That means we can just lay the new keyboard down and glue it into place. I want to point out that the keyboard that I ordered came and it was missing the escape key. Now luckily I was able to remove the escape key from the old keyboard and clip it onto this one, thus I don't have to return it. You can't do that every time, but I just want to caution you that if you're buying these really cheap keyboards, they might occasionally be missing a key. So make sure you keep the old one to hand, as you might be able to swap the key over and save a return. As for actually installing the new keyboard then, I've got two Hacker One devices. They're very expensive, it's £110 for a pair. Obviously 99% of you aren't going to have them, but I was able to make do in the past using two toothbrushes, one on this side, one on the other side, just to support the palm rest and hold it off of the desk. I also have a bunch of yogurt pots, of which I'm going to put them basically underneath the palm rest so the thing stays flat, because what you don't want is the palm rest sagging. If the palm rest sags, the keyboard might not glue in place properly. Now I'm just going to glue the keyboard down. I've showed off the full process in a different video, hence I'm not going to go into complete excruciating detail in this one. But the general idea is that you get T7000 and you squeeze it onto every single point. I don't think I've got much left in this tube, but I'm obviously going to keep squeezing it out until it runs out pretty much. But what you have to do is go along every single little post, put a bit of T7000 on, and so on. And you need to be careful that you don't drop any of it into the mechanism, otherwise the keys may not click. So this is a fiddly job, it's delicate, and it's needlessly difficult. If you want to get some practice, go around the edges first. Anyway, I'll come back in a few minutes time when I've got the glue on each one of these posts. That's the setup I've come up with. So you can see a microwave capacitor, a bunch of plastic and then metal clamps, a CMOS battery holder 3D print with a D-cell battery on the top, 3 more clamps, a bunch of yogurt pots, and then lots of T7000 to actually hold the keyboard in place. Is this not just ridiculous? The keyboard was glued down, so then I've put this metal cover on the top as well. I glued that on also. I decided not to film the process because it was really fiddly with this keyboard. And also I have a video on YouTube detailing the entire process, which I'll leave a link to in the description. But this is just stupid. I mean, I'm having to use a clamp with a screw under it, a clamp with sort of a motherboard standoff, a clamp with a 3D print with some washers, and all this just to keep this metal frame pressed down nicely, because if you don't press the frame down nicely, then obviously it doesn't glue down flat and you can't get the laptop back together. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. Every key presses exactly the way I want it to press. Power button obviously doesn't press because there's nothing beneath it, but I'm pretty confident to say that keyboard's glued in nicely. I've set the motherboard down in place. I've set the right speaker down because it goes beneath the motherboard. I'm going to do the USB port and the audio jacks, which for some reason need to be like hooked underneath this post, but now that they're hooked under, that's all good. I'm going to plug the USB ribbon cable in, and then that runs flat along the body of the laptop and obviously plugs in to the motherboard. Alright then, the speaker's in place. The next thing to do is the power button, which you just hook underneath the heatsink. That sits in place. I'll screw everything down later. I'm just pretty much getting these things in position first of all. Off camera, I'm just going to screw everything in. That was quite fiddly, but at least it's done now. So we'll put the drive in like this, and then my little adapter piece, which is right here, and then hopefully, yeah, you can see that spans the gap. We still need something to go in the middle, just to keep it pressed flat, but that's potentially a working solution. I've found the solution. I've got this PCIe to NVMe SSD adapter, and it comes with this little coupling piece. So I'm going to take the screw out the back, remove the coupling piece, and we're going to use it to couple, obviously, this piece to there. So this and this go like this, look. And then now that's one complete assembly. Seems sturdy enough to me. I'm sure if I wrenched up on it, it would fail, but, you know, if you wrenched up on a regular SSD, it would break. I'm quite pleased with that. It's taken a while, but we are making progress. Alright then, this one goes here. I've just done the other side as well. So that's good. We'll do the charging port dead last. Let's just run the display cable, because that's obviously the most important one. Working on laptops isn't difficult though, if you're doing jobs like this, where you're just replacing a keyboard and whatnot. It's just tedious, you know. Right, let's just loosen that off so I can squeeze this cable beneath it. Right, charging port sorted. Antennas sorted. At least they will be when I squeeze them underneath this little lip. There's your antennas, there's your charging port, there's your display. As long as I put some F10, I can get all of that to sit flat like it just has. And there you are. I mean, that's the laptop back together. Remember, all of that was just so I could replace a keyboard. Like I said, back in the day, 3 screws out the bottom cover, you'd pop a few clips, keyboard would come off. We had to fully dismantle the entire machine, take the keyboard out, use T7000, reassemble the entire machine. It's just designed to make it as difficult as possible without making it literally impossible. You can see here I have a 9.5mm optical disc drive blank. It's a design that I made myself quite a long time ago. I'm going to print it off and it's going to be the foundation of the DVD drive for this PC. The dimensions are correct and the front is perfectly flat, so I can just model the little extension piece and then glue it on. This piece is printed and you can see it's looking pretty good, at least if I do say so myself. And even better, I mean, I already knew this was going to fit because it's a standard design that I've used quite a few times, but you can see it fits nicely into a laptop, can slide it back out of the machine, happy days. The question then is, how do we mount it? So the solution I've come up with instead, if I just put this back in, is to sort of press it to the side and to the back, and then I can flip this over, and you'll see that I've put a mark here on the bottom cover and a mark there. What I can do is drill through with a 3mm drill bit. That's obviously then going to leave 2 holes in the housing. I can then switch to a 2.5mm drill bit, drill through this on the other side, and then I can use these screws from an old Fujitsu Lifebook laptop to hold this piece in place. I'd say I'm pretty pleased with that. You can see this screws in, that screws in, and then this thing's secure as well. How about we get the laptop put back together then? So I'm going to get the back cover, obviously. I'm just going to stick it in place, and then fingers crossed it kind of clicks down the way that I want it to. So now it's just a case of getting all the screws back in and obviously putting the DVD drive blank in. The machine's screwed together, and you can see that this time there's a screw in every single hole, which is good. I'll just go around quickly. The only thing though is that there aren't any screws in the DVD drive, and instead of just glossing over that and pretending it didn't happen, for some reason the holes don't line up now that the machine's actually back together. To be fair, it's in there really, really securely because the T7000 is, you know, sort of providing a little bit of friction. But I did just think I'd be upfront about that. I don't think it's really going to be a problem, to be honest. The only things left to do for this machine is to model a bezel, buy a battery, and then install Linux. Buying a battery is easy. I'm going to install Linux next, and then the bezel will be the last piece of the puzzle. CachyOS is the operating system of choice. It's just a derivative of Linux. So I run it on my desktop, I run it on both of my laptops, and I recommend it to anybody who's looking to give Linux a try. So when this is done installing, I'll come back, we'll quickly poke around the OS, make sure the webcam's working, make sure the keyboard works, the speakers, and all that other stuff, and provided it does, we're getting close to the finish line. CachyOS is installed, I've booted it up, I've gone to a web browser and typed in webcam test. I've opened a YouTube video as well, just so we can test the speakers. And then furthermore, I've already taken the liberty of testing the keyboard. I thought there's no point making you all watch me type out the same stuff again. Crucially, the backspace key works now, and every other key on the entire keyboard works. I've tested all of them with the exception of sort of, you know, F7 and whatnot. There's no reason why the webcam won't work, 'cause it worked last time. I'm going to face that downwards, and I'm going to hit test my cam. Slide it backwards a bit, and I don't really need to open it. You can see that obviously that webcam's working fine. And then you'll remember I said I had a video where I showed you how to replace a keyboard that's plastic welded down. So if you're not technically minded, yeah, the speakers work fine then. I can skip around the video. You can see it's just going to mute it. It's got no problem keeping up, anything like that. This laptop's working absolutely fine. Oh good, an advert. That's because uBlock Origin isn't installed. I don't make any money from this channel, so I'm not going to sit through an advert, am I? Let's close the tab. I mean, yeah, right click works, left click works, I can drag around. The number pad works, I've tested all of it, it's working absolutely fine. I've navigated my way to eBay, and you can get a replacement battery for $13.95. That's obviously not an original HP part, but the original HP batteries cost quadruple. Or you can buy a used one, but it's going to have such poor health that you may as well just buy this one anyway. I've made a quick and dirty 3D model of the bezel cover, so you can see there, it's only version 2. And to be honest, it's kind of based on the limitations of my skill. I know how to make a chamfer with 2 variables, hence it's sort of, it isn't a 45-degree angle, but it's a steeper angle. I don't know how to do the same thing with a fillet. I'm not very familiar with the software because basically I'm self-taught. Anyway, it should be close enough to the curvature of the laptop itself. I'm not looking for absolute perfection here. Remember, this is a junk screen. I'm just looking for a part that I can glue on, so it's not got this massive ugly gap. And as long as it fits reasonably well, I'll be happy with it. What's ironic is that to make the 3D model, I ended up using this scrap desktop, although I believe the video of this laptop is going to come out before the desktop, so you're going to have to stay tuned for that one. I'm pleased to report that the first print that I've done actually fits for a change, so I'll put it on. I can't bring it up too close as I have the overhead light on, it'll do that horrible roller shutter thing. But I'm basically just going to take this, I'm going to stand it up on these 2 things I guess. And then when it's stood up, I'm just going to stick some glue along here because I've got some super glue. And then I can just hold this in place for a bit and it'll be set down. As always then, don't go overboard with this glue. Just put sort of a few puddles of it on. I mean, I say don't go overboard, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I've just done. Anyway, just make sure you seal it up nicely when you're done, and then, I mean, it should be quite easy for once. I can just sort of press it down into place and hold it for a little bit. Brilliant, I've let that sit for sort of 30-40 seconds, and now I can show you the angle a little bit better. It looks alright. I mean, obviously it doesn't look perfect. You've got this gap at the top, but of course you have the gap at the top because a T7000 was sticking out a little bit. But from the side on, really doesn't look too bad, so that will definitely do the job. Good news, the battery has arrived, and I've actually already fitted it. I'm just going to unplug the charger and remove the battery just to show you how easy it is to fit it. But literally, this one just gets slid to the left, that one will spring into the correct position. Then you just line the battery up, click it on, slide it back. That's all there is to it. I've had it plugged in charging for several hours. So the idea is now, I'm going to spin this around, I'm going to turn the machine on, we'll boot into Linux, I'll be able to run a piece of software that's going to tell me the battery health. Fingers crossed the health is good and that the new battery is okay. And if it is, I mean, this project is pretty much done at that point. I've run this command here, upower-e, and it gives you 3 outputs. Anyway, I just need to run upower-i, and then this, it's just upower-i, and then the result that you got. I'll hit enter. And we can see that the battery's percentage is 99% because it's just obviously been draining for a minute. It has 100% of its design capacity, which is good. 32 watt hours of design capacity, which isn't amazing, but remember this is at least a battery of all of its capacity. Apparently it reckons it was built by Hewlett-Packard, so perhaps, I mean, they've either put HP firmware on there, or they've stripped apart genuine batteries and then put new cells in them. In other words then, the laptop is working exactly the way I want it to, so now I can remove this sticker that says it doesn't work, I can close the machine, I'll unplug the charger, and I can actually show you that on the bottom I've just sort of given it a quick clean up, and then why not, I put a repairwins.com sticker on the bottom. DVD drive cover's in place, it's nice, it's sort of it's smooth, it's nice to the touch. It's exactly the right size. It's very rare that I get stuff like this correct on the first go, but in this rare instance, yeah, DVD drive is covered up as well. So that's basically this laptop fixed. The remaining step is just to install 4 bottom feet, but I didn't feel like waiting 2 weeks to record the clip because that's how long they're going to take to arrive. So I've ordered the feet, they're on the way, they've only cost a few pounds, and so, I mean, once they arrive I'll glue them on and the machine will be finished with. That concludes this saga then. This laptop has obviously taken quite a lot of work, it's taken quite a lot of time. In the real world it wasn't worth it for me to do this job. This is one of those waste of time jobs. But you know, every once in a while you've got to find time spare in your schedule to do a waste of time job, because number one, they're the way that you learn, and number two, they end up being the most fun jobs in my experience. So for you at home, it wouldn't have made sense to buy a screen, a battery, a keyboard, a fan, a Wi-Fi card, charging port, RAM, DVD drive, an SSD. If I didn't say that, you know, that's 9 separate parts. But for me, I had the screen spare, I had a stick of RAM, I had an SSD, though I did have to adapt it. I had a Wi-Fi card, I've got access to a 3D printer, I already had the filament. So I only had to buy the keyboard and the battery, charging port and fan. So I'm in for maybe £35 on this laptop, that's including the bottom feet. So for me, it's really not cost a huge amount of money, it's just a little bit of so-called sweat equity, you know, labour. But the result of it, the result of all that hard work and that small amount of capital investment is that we've now got a laptop that works exactly the way you would expect. It's, you know, it's quick. It runs quietly. There's no reason why it's not going to be perfectly reliable for somebody, because, you know, it's going to be getting donated to the Birmingham Device Bank, which is part of the non-profit that I help run. The reason why I'm making these videos, you know, to generate a tiny bit of exposure and also to teach people how to repair. Because my attitude is, if you've got knowledge, you need to share it, and you need to share it for free. No ifs, no buts. So basically then, if you've liked what you've seen in this video, if it was useful to you, feel free to leave a like. That would really help myself out, it would really help Recognition Circular out, it helps us spread the repair message further. More people see the videos, more people fix their own stuff, more people save money. You know, it's one of those rare occasions where everybody wins, except for people who don't like the sound of this guy's voice, because they have to suffer, alright? And I suppose HP have to suffer as well, because they've just lost £600 because someone's not buying a new machine. Alright, that's enough rambling, I think. If you're really liking sort of the stuff that I'm doing around here, then feel free to subscribe. It's free, you can always sort of unsubscribe later if you change your mind. I say it every time, but there's interesting stuff in the pipeline. I've been working on a scrap desktop as well as this scrap laptop. Just looking over at my whiteboard, I've got a PC that I had to disable the USB ports on to fix. I've got a dehumidifier that's basically sat in my hallway because I found it in the building. It's been sat there for about a month. I've not yet looked at it. If I go to test it and it doesn't work, I'll obviously be fixing that. I've got some sort of, a family member of mine basically has got very young child. My mother bought a toy for said child, only the toy doesn't work, so I'm going to be fixing that. And potentially a bunch of PlayStation controllers for a local charity that has PlayStations that people can use, and you know, they all get stick drift. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff coming in the future. I enjoy making these videos. I can't churn them out as often as I want to, nor should you really be churning videos out anyway. You should be happy with it. You know, you should be able to put your own seal of approval on it and say, right, pleased with that, that's going out. I don't rush videos out for the sake of getting them out. I'm sure I could churn out plenty of shorts, get way more views and way more subscribers much faster, but that's not the way that you grow a lasting audience. You know, that clickbait sort of video where someone says, I combined 1,000 batteries and you know, I don't know, created lightning or something. It's all fake, it's all rubbish, it's just a waste of time. Come on, just make proper videos. And if you're the person watching the videos, then, you know, watch stuff that's actually beneficial to you. Nothing wrong with wasting a little bit of time, you know. We all watch Family Guy and The Simpsons and other such programs. But remember, don't waste all of the time that you spend on the internet. I'm going to leave you with that one, I think. 3 minutes 43 seconds according to my camera. I'm going to get on out of here. I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned until then. Take care for now, and goodbye.